Jesus. Walking and talking with my mind. Stay on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind. Stay on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind. Stay on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Singing and shouting. Singing and shouting with my mind. Stay on freedom. Singing and shouting with my mind. Stay on freedom. Singing and shouting with my mind. Stay on freedom. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. No band, no wall, no cages. No band, no wall, no cages. Stay on freedom. No band, no wall, no cages. Stay on freedom. No band, no wall, no cages. Stay on freedom. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Racism ain't gonna let racism turn me round. Turn me round, turn me round, ain't gonna let racism turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching into freedom land. No border wall, ain't gonna let no border wall turn me round, turn me round, turn me round, ain't gonna let no border wall turn me round. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching into freedom land. Injustice ain't gonna let injustice turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching into freedom land. Nobody ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom land. My name is Marlene Prey, and I'm with Rise Up Doylestown and with all of you. Our first speaker tonight is the mayor of Doylestown, who we are so proud to have stand with us for every progressive and justice cause that we stand for in this community. Mayor Ron Strauss.
So let me read the testimony from an 11-year-old boy in the camps. There are little kids here who have no one to take care of them, not even a big brother or a sister. Some kids are only 2 or 3 years old, and they have no one to take care of them. Now I'm here to provide a welcome to you to Doylestown. And by the way, I wish you weren't here. And I wish I wasn't here either. But the battle requires that. And by the way, there is a sign there that I love called Melt Ice. Some of you may know that ICE was here earlier this week on Tuesday morning. I got a call at 6:45 from a resident of Doylestown telling me that they were here. They don't tell us when they're coming. They don't tell us when they're here. And they don't tell us whether we've been here. We never have a notice. We never will. But we never will cooperate with them. And we never will either. In this community, we work day and night to make the community stronger, to add to its cohesiveness. Every time they visit Doylestown, they undermine our work. With ICE visits, we feel unclean, we feel violated, and we feel that we are living in an authoritarian state. We may not personally know the victims of the families when ICE comes to visit, but tonight we'll hear the stories of some of those victims, stories that we only hear until tonight on the news. Make no doubt about it, we are the victims as well. We need to find ways forward, ways consistent with the values we hold dear and as a community and the values we hold as a nation. For all of us, it starts here. It extends across the nation, not just the two coasts of the nation, by the way. Our civic and our humanitarian and our moral responsibilities have never been greater than they are now. Tonight, because our community values are at stake, as well as the integrity of our whole nation. Thank you for inviting me. Have a great night.
Testimony from a 16-year-old girl in the camps. We are in a metal cage with 20 other teenagers, with babies and young children. We have one mat, and we need to share with each other. Sometimes it is so crowded, we cannot find a place to sleep. The lights are on all of the time. My name is Sue Ann DeVito, and I'm one of the co-founders of Immigrant Rights Action Group. Last year, we watched as thousands of children were separated from their families at the border. They are still separating families. Some may never be reunited. Since December, 6 children have died, each one in U.S. custody. We have read about a premature baby, neglected, lying listless in a dirty towel, about children shuttled to detention centers in the dark of night, of sexual assault and disgusting conditions that we wouldn't even have our animals live in. The cruel policy changes that created this humanitarian crisis were implemented on purpose. And the impact of these policy changes have not been restricted to the border. We have seen the impact of ICE here in our community, separating families and spreading fear. Pennsylvania has the highest rate of ICE arrests in the country, most without prior criminal conviction. Right? Now let's talk about Berks County. Berks County is one of 19 that cooperates with ICE. Right? This is on us. We can do something. We must do something. Call Congress, and most importantly, speak to your local representatives and municipal officials. Tell them we want our values as a community reflected in the way they interact with federal agencies and the way they treat our neighbors. Donate to humanitarian efforts and legal funds. To get involved locally, go to immigrantRightsAction.org or stop by our table way over there. There is no such thing as someone else's children. Please, let us honor these lives lost. Please continue to use your outrage and don't stop getting angry. This is not right. This is not okay. Use your outrage to shine a light on what is happening. Thank you for being here. Your presence is giving me hope. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Ricardo Garcia Mendez. He is a CB West graduate who came to America as an unaccompanied minor from Guatemala at the age of 15.
Mi nombre es Ricardo García Méndez.
My name is Ricardo Garcia Mendez.
Soy de Guatemala.
I'm from Guatemala.
Tengo 22 años.
I'm 22 years old now.
Me tocó dejar a mis papás en Guatemala a los 15 años.
I had to leave my parents in Guatemala at 15.
Me tocó cruzar todo México y la frontera.
I had to
solo.
cross all of Mexico and the frontier alone.
Sufrí bastante. Para llegar acá me tomé 2 meses y medio.
I suffered a lot. It took me 2.5 months to get here.
Vi lo fuerte que es pasar México contra mucha delincuencia.
I saw and experienced how rough it is to cross Mexico, and there was a lot of delinquent behavior.
Deshidratado y todo, caí en migración.
I was dehydrated, and I found myself, I landed in immigration.
Cuando llegué al centro de migración, me dijeron de que sería deportado.
When I got there, they told me I would be deported
Porque nadie podría aceptarme en este país.
because no one could accept me in this country.
Traía mi partida de nacimiento en mano y ellos me la rompieron en mi cara diciéndome de que no podía estar acá.
I had my birth certificate. I gave it to them. They ripped it up in front of my face and told me it was not real.
E incluso me dijeron de que podrían meterme a la cárcel por 5 años porque yo estaba mintiendo.
That they could put me in jail because they believed I was lying.
Después de eso yo no tenía ninguna identificación conmigo para poder decir mi nombre.
I had
ni
no
quién
ID
era.
with my name on it after that.
Mi primera noche en la cárcel fue muy difícil porque me llevaron a la cárcel grande en donde todo es helado.
My hardest night was the first night in detention. They took me to where it's really, really cold.
Aproximadamente no sabía ni la hora ni nada porque las luces estaban encendidas durante toda la noche.
Lights were on all day, all night. I had no idea what time it was.
Sufrí mucha hambre y sed porque la comida es solo helada.
I was so hungry and so thirsty, but food was frozen.
La sala donde estaba teníamos agua, pero era más cloro que agua y no se podía tomar.
We had water, but it tasted like Clorox.
Después de eso me llevaron a otra sala en donde solo podía dormir con la luz encendida y tapándome con un pedazo de papel aluminio.
They gave me a piece of aluminum foil to cover myself with, and I tried to sleep.
Yeah. Después de eso ya me llevaron a la primera casa hogar en donde me atendieron bien.
After that time, I suffered, and I went to my first house detention center. There they treated me a little better.
Y me sentí mucho mejor, pero al igual andaba demasiado enfermo que no a veces ni dormía ni nada.
I felt better, but I was so sick I could not sleep.
Después yo pasaba todo ese tiempo más que todo solo rezando y pensando en mis padres porque tampoco sabía yo de ellos ni ellos de mí.
I spent hours praying, thinking of my parents. They didn't know anything about me. I didn't know anything about them.
Después de eso, de 2 meses y medio, tuve la primera llamada con mi papá.
After 2.5 months, I had my first phone call with my dad.
Y pues él solo se puso a llorar y me dijo que en verdad él había pensado de que yo había fallecido o algo porque nadie le daba noticias de mí.
He thought I was dead.
Después de eso, me llevaron a Aventura, California, a una base naval en donde éramos aproximadamente 600 menores de edad.
The next place I went was a naval base in Aventura, California. There were about 600 of us there.
Era difícil porque solo al día podía ir una vez o dos veces al baño si era emergencia.
You could only go to the bathroom once or twice a day, and only if it was an emergency.
Ahí sufrí de que una noche intenté ir al baño y ya no pude porque me dijeron de que era noche y tenía que dormir.
I tried to go to the bathroom once, but it was night. They said it was too late. I had to hold it. I had to go to sleep.
Después de eso, me llevaron a San Diego, California, en donde ya me hicieron chequeos, me atendieron bien y me sentí mucho mejor.
The next place I went was San Diego. There, I finally got a medical checkup.
Pero también ahí encontré a un compañero que también era de Guatemala.
I found a buddy of mine, also from Guatemala.
Y él me contó que él venía con su papá, pero su papá había muerto.
He told me he had crossed with his father, but his father was now dead.
Después de eso, todo cambió. Agradecí mucho que muchas personas me ayudaron y una persona se hizo cargo en este país de mí y así es como pude quedar.
After that, everything changed. One person stepped up and took me in. It was my uncle.
Desde entonces todo cambió. Pasé muchísimo tiempo acá solo, sin mis papás, y llevo 5 años ya sin verlos. Y pues
I came here. I was alone. It's been 5 years. I haven't seen anyone.
Pero todo pasó de que me encontré con las personas que me han ayudado como el grupo de Acción.
I haven't been alone because I have come across lots of people who have helped me, including Jenny and her group.
Y ahora pues soy residente y iré a visitar a mis padres muy pronto.
I am now a legal permanent resident. And I will be seeing my parents again for the first time this year.
Esta es mi historia y muchas gracias por escuchar.
That's my story. Thank you so much. I just want to add one thing about this young man. He attended CB West. He went to school during the day. He worked at a restaurant at night. He got off of work at 1 a.m., walked home from Willow Grove to here, went back to school the next morning and graduated from CB West.
Muchas gracias, Ricardo. Next up is Father Mike Ruck. He is from St. Philip's Episcopal Church in New Hope and a friend to all and shows up whenever we ask for a voice of wisdom and love and depth. So, Reverend Mike.
This is a testimony from a 16-year-old boy in the camps. They told us that we could only have one layer of clothing, and they threw away the rest of our clothes in the garbage. We come here tonight as so many different people. We come here as people who are white, people who are black, people who are Asian. We come here as Republicans and Democrats. We come here as Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists. But most importantly, we come here as human beings tonight. And I stress that because so many times when we gather here, we've gathered here so many times in so many vigils, we think it's a political issue. It's not. It's a human issue. As a person of faith, I believe that each and every person is made in the image and likeness of God. And that's a core teaching of Christianity and Judaism and Islam and so many of the world's faith. that we come together and we look in each other's eyes, no matter what their skin color is, or faith, or sexuality, or immigrant status, that we are made in God's holy image. This Sunday, Christians throughout the world ironically hear the story of the Good Samaritan. When one of Jesus' apostles asked him, "Who is your neighbor? Who is your neighbor?" And Jesus responds with that classic story of the person lying on the ditch. And it was the establishment religious leader who walks past them. And it's someone else who is a religious authority walks past him again. But it was the outsider who recognized that this abused, broken body was the neighbor. And we need to recognize that all the time, because so often it's easy for us to look the other way, the other direction. But we need to look head on into who our neighbor is and embrace them and love them and hold them dear. A lot of times the word sodomy is bantered around by religious people like me, and automatically that word comes to mind of things sexual. Well, this colored individual wants to give you a little Sunday school lesson. Sodomy, the sin of Sodom, is the sin of inhospitality to the stranger. And both the Hebrew scripture and the Christian scripture teaches one of the gravest sins is sodomy. And so when we are inhospitable to a stranger, we are committing one of the gravest sins of the Bible. There's a wonderful quote, and it's attributed to many people. We are in this present time where we're always talking about greatness. And there's a quote that says, "You can tell how great a country is by how it treats its most vulnerable." So this evening, I want to thank you all for coming out and being concerned about making our country truly great by treating the most vulnerable. And that is really why we're gathered here this evening. This is about giving people human dignity, realizing they're made in the image and likeness of God. Each of us are called to name that sin. Name the sin. Have the courage. And in that courage, lift it up. Lift it up into the light and transform it into love. Name the sin. Lift it up and transform it and bring it into love.
Thank you, Father Ruck. Our next speaker is Dr. Daniel Jacobson Lopez. Dr. Lopez was born in Honduras. He is an advocate and activist and the first Latinx to receive a PhD at the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work. Dr. Lopez.
Testimony of an 8-year-old boy in the camps. They took us away from our grandmother, and now we are all alone. We have been here for a long time. I have to take care of my little sister. She is very sad because she misses our mother and grandmother. We sleep on a concrete bench. I was here, first of all, I speak to you as a Latino, as a Latin American, as a Central American, and, does this work? Okay, and as a Honduran. I am proud to be all of these identities. I was here almost a year ago, and thanks to all the organizers who were here a year ago, we spoke out when we first started seeing families being separated from their parents. Unfortunately, the racism, the xenophobia has continued. As we know, history of immigrants in the United States and how they are treated is nothing new. We saw this when the Irish first came and they were considered black and treated as black enslaved people were. Then the US government decided the Irish are white, as they had made many other numerous court decisions regarding all people from Asia, the Pacific Islanders, Latinos, We had a point when Mexicans could not testify in court because they were Mexican. We have this with blacks in the US based on how many drops of blood they had in their skin, whether it considered to be black or white. Unfortunately, the consistent vilification, racism, and xenophobia against immigrants has continued and is continuing to get today, now continuing with Latino immigrants. What we have now is not migration camps. What we have now is not simply bad policies. What we have is racism, we have xenophobia, and we have concentration camps. It is plain and simple. We see the administration, Trump, calling Mexicans and people from Latin America rapists, bringing the worst over for the company. We see Melania Trump wearing a racist shirt saying, "I don't really care, do you?" as she boarded the trains to pretend to care about Latino children. These are issues that affect all of us, whether we are immigrants, whether we're black and brown people. We need to start continuing to speak up against racism, xenophobia, and also labeling it for what it is. When we see people being forced to drink out of toilets, that is racism. When we see families being separated, that is racism. When we see the president calling us Latinos rapists and criminals, that is racism. When we see t-shirts being worn saying, "I don't really care," that is racism. When we see rise of white nationalists, that is racism. And when we see ICE coming on Sunday and ripping families apart, that is racism. So, what I encourage everybody to do, as I'm sure everyone who here already is doing, is take every opportunity you possibly can to advocate for black and brown people, for immigrants, and there are many things you can do. One is attend rallies. One is get out there and vote. Less than 50% of the US population voted in the last election, which is why we have a racist and a sexual predator in the White House. What we need to do is continue to vote. We need to also protect immigrants from raids. If you see someone, and if you are a U.S. citizen, I urge you to use your privilege as a U.S. citizen for undocumented folks. You have the privilege as a U.S. citizen, particularly if you are white, to stand up and ask the ICE, what are they doing there? If you see someone being detained, where are they being taken? Why are they being taken? What is the purpose of them being there? Remember, if ICE comes to your door, and if you know anyone who is an immigrant or undocumented, they cannot enter unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. ICE official does not count as a judge. So remember to stay strong, don't lose hope, and every opportunity you have to speak with someone who is on the fence or doesn't quite understand it, make it clear that we need to continue to advocate and fight against racism, xenophobia, be clear this is what it is. This is not a bipartisan issue. This is not about politics. This is about human dignity, humanity, and standing up for black and brown people in the United States. Que viva Latinoamérica.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. I want to also acknowledge another representative that's here, Representative Perry Warren from Newtown. Where are you? Thank you for being here tonight, wherever you are. We hope you're listening. Next up is Gail Evans. Gail is a tireless advocate for racial justice and peace. She is the Director of Leadership and Community Engagement for one of our central sponsors tonight, the Peace Center. Gail Evans.
Testimony from a 17-year-old girl in the camps. 3 days ago, my baby soiled his clothes. I have been told they do not have any clothes here at this place. I just want my baby to be warm enough. I am having to make sure I carry him super close to me to keep his little body warm. Okay. I'm going to be brief. This is a story of America, and this story is told to my 3-year-old grandson. Once upon a time, several powerful, rich, entitled men lived in a mansion that we call the White House. Some of these men were very evil and represented a country we call America. America slaughtered and displaced our indigenous sons and daughters. America stole, whipped, chained, sold and enslaved, our mothers and fathers from Africa. America confined and imprisoned our Japanese American grandmothers and grandfathers. America caged, traumatized, destroyed dreams, and demonized our brothers, sisters, little boys, and little girls who sought safety and refuge on our shores. Sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? But it's true. The good news, yes, there's good news, that we can write a new story. We're not going to let this happen again. And I close with the moral of this story, which was written more than 50 years ago by the revered Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity.
Thank you, Gail. Our next speaker is the Reverend Kevin Jago from the Bucksmont Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We're so glad you're here.
Testimony of a 5-year-old boy in the camps. I was taken with my father. The immigration agents separated me from my father right away. I was very frightened and scared. I cried. I have not seen my father again. I have had a cold and cough for several days. I have not seen a doctor, and I have not been given any medicine. As a Unitarian Universalist, my faith exists when you all show up, when we gather together for what matters most. I'm here tonight to bring the perspective that resisting inhumane government action and calling attention to abuses of authority are as much a religious conviction as they are acts of justice. My tradition's first principle, the thing we put first as most important, states the inherent worth and dignity of every person. No qualifiers, no exceptions. Each human being is of worth and worthy of dignity by the very fact of their humanity. No matter their citizenship status or country of origin, I call on us to align our highest values with how we expect our government, county, country, and police to operate on our behalf. What they do is a reflection of who we are. We are the ones to hold them accountable, each and every one of us here now. May we, as people of many faiths and none, reflect the values that we hold in our hearts to those who would harm our neighbors and those across this country we so love. May we call for justice and compassion for immigrant families as inherently worthy, no exceptions. I recall Unitarian minister Edward Everett Hale's words when I think about how to show up each day to a challenging and heartbreaking world. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. And looking at you all here, gathered tonight, I see what can happen when each of us do that something that we can do. Thank you all for being here now. Please do the something you can do each and every day. Then do it again the next day and the next, until the world is a better place for all our neighbors everywhere, no exception.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next speaker is Luz Gamaf, who is a Colombian immigrant and a member of Rise Up Doylestown and of the Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition. And my dear friend, Luz.
Good afternoon. I'm here. This is a testimony of a 15-year-old girl in the camp. I started taking care of a 5-year-old in the ice bags after they separated her from her father. She was very upset. The workers did nothing to comfort her. I tried to comfort her, and she's been with me ever since. She sleeps on a mat with me on the concrete floor. We spend all day, every day in that room. There are no activities, only crying. One of the officers make fun of those who cry. I'm here to speak to you as an immigrant, as a mother, and as a human being who is crushed by what has been happening. I can't sleep. I have difficulty moving on with my daily life as a result of what's happening. I want to bring to your attention a reality that I don't know if you are aware of, but I invite you to think and imagine a country so powerful that could come here to the United States and take all your resources. A country so powerful that could come here into the United States and determine your leaders and put in place people who will have not your best interests in mind. A country so powerful that could completely crush down your economy for decades. And as you live in that reality, you struggle to survive with nothing, with very little. And then one day, you here in the United States realize it's not longer possible for you or your children to survive here because another country that has so much power has taken it all. So you decide that it's time for you to immigrate to that country because all the resources have been moved to that country. But when you arrive in that country, you are told you are a criminal for trying to save your children, for trying to save the lives of your children. That is in fact what's happening all over the world. This is seen in Europe, this is seen here, this is seen everywhere. We are all together in this. We are all suffering from the same disease of greed. We are all just simply suffering from the disease of greed. Other human beings are not your enemies. Greed is your enemy. And we all suffering from the same disease. We just simply are at a different stages of that disease. That is all that's happening, and I invite you to think about this and to stop hating other human beings. We're not here to take anything from anybody. We work hard. We just want to survive. We want our children to have a future. We don't want anything to happen to you. We want the best for you, just we want for our children. I beg you to stop hating other people, stereotyping other people. Your real enemy is not other human beings. Greed is your real enemy. Start looking in that direction.
Thank you, Luz. I'm so honored to welcome our next speaker. Madiha Irfan is the Executive Director of the Muslim Society of the Delaware Valley, and we're so glad to have you with us tonight.
Testimony from a 12-year-old boy in the camps. I am hungry here at Clint all the time. So hungry that I have woken up in the middle of the night with hunger. I am too scared to ask the officials here for any food. What we're seeing at the border today is nothing short of real concentration camps with incredibly dehumanizing conditions for real people. The definition of a concentration camp is mass detention of civilians without trial, and this is exactly what's happening. There's no accountability at these camps, no medical experts or mental health professionals or human rights monitors allowed in. Children are living without basic necessities such as soap and toothpaste and even beds. They're all crammed together in tiny, overcrowded spaces, and the conditions are only getting worse. To date, at least 24 people have died in ICE custody and in these camps. This cruelty, this inhumanity cannot be ignored. What's happening may be far from us and out of our immediate sight, but we cannot look away. Let us stand here together today and to continue to stand together every day until we see an end to this inhumanity. Let us pray for a day when the words engraved on the Statue of Liberty and the words I see on some of the shirts here, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," let us pray for a day when those words reflect the true national ethos around immigration in this country. May our brothers and sisters in the camps be able to breathe free. May they see hope and justice and mercy. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Madiha. Our next speaker is Rabbi Anna Boswell-Levy from the Kol Emet Synagogue. We're so glad to have you with us.
Testimony from a mother, age unknown, in the camps. The day we arrived, my baby became sick. She could not open her eyes and had a fever which got much worse during the day. I asked the guard for help, and he told me, just deal with it. It is amazing to see all of you here this evening. Tonight, I am not leading services in synagogue as I would normally be doing on a Friday night. So I wish to share some words of Torah here as we pray for justice tonight. In the Torah portion Jews everywhere are reading this week, we learn about Moses hitting the rock instead of heeding the command to speak to the rock, and about the subsequent punishment of Moses and Aaron not being able to make it into the promised land. Reading it this year, I pondered, now why would Aaron, who is in essence a bystander to Moses' sin, receive the same punishment as Moses? And why must he die even sooner? It struck me deeply that the Torah is teaching a significant lesson here. If you see something and have the power to do something but fail to do so, you are just as culpable as the person who has done the wrong. This is reinforced by the fact that Moses strikes the rock not once but twice. The first time, perhaps Moses couldn't get it to Moses, so perhaps Aaron couldn't get to Moses in time, couldn't stop him as it happened in a flash. But the second time, there was an opportunity for Aaron to intervene, and Aaron failed to stand up when he had that opportunity. This teaching is universally important and particularly relevant right now. Over the past few weeks, we have been seeing horrific images and reading terrible accounts of the conditions at the border, the continuation and exacerbation of the family separation policy, the abuse, physical and sexual abuse against women and children, and more. And as I always say, we do not have to agree on the specifics of immigration policy to agree that human rights violations are not okay and that the dehumanization of any individual or group is unacceptable. We are witnessing a moment, this moment, and we cannot say we didn't know. We cannot say we did not see. This rock has not been just struck once. There has been time, there has been an opportunity to make our voices heard, and this is a moment that we are called to live our faith, to live our spiritual practice, to practice what we are preaching about peace and justice. In the Jewish tradition, our constant refrain is never again. In our synagogues, in our Hebrew schools, in our living rooms, we have the mantra, never again, etched into our memories like the numbers etched on the arms of our elders. We who promised to remember, who vowed never again, carry with us the weight of our 6 million dead, so that who they were or could have been won't be forgotten. And that's why we always remember the earlier generations who risked everything to find a place where they wouldn't be villainized, hunted, and persecuted. Yet we forget. We build memorials and museums for our dead, yet we forget that we are living in a moment that we will be memorialized and our own forgetting will be put on display. We argue about the words concentration and camp while people considered a threat to national security are held at the U.S. borders simply by virtue of their ethnicity or country of origin. They are concentrated in camps here in our so-called land of the free. As we sit in our spacious living rooms and somber sanctuaries chanting, never again, we continue to forget. So while I have mixed feelings about coming and protesting on a Friday night, on Shabbat, I feel the moment is calling me to do so. I urge each of us to consider ourselves as Aaron, nearby witnessing things going wrong, terribly wrong, and to remember that we have a moment, an opportunity to speak up and say, never again for anyone. There are many ways to speak out. Call your legislators and ask them to stand up for the basic human rights of those who've crossed the border. Tweet out to companies that financially benefit from this system. Use your voice and know that you are powerful. So I want to offer this prayer, that God should strengthen our voices and sustain us as we continue this fight for justice. Watch over those imprisoned inside and outside of our national borders for the crime of seeking asylum. May our leaders have the vision and courage to hear their cries and act to restore the moral compass of our nation speedily and in our days. And let us say, Amen.
We did send a press release out, so that's the news. So hopefully they'll stick around till we light our candles.
Hi, I would like to introduce you to my friend, Maritza Gonzalez. And she came over across the border as a young child. She's a DACA recipient, and she's here to share our story. Before she shares her story, I want to tell you how much she does for our community every day. Thank you for being here, Maritza.
So it's been 18 years since I've crossed the border. I was just about 7 years old when I crossed with my sister, unknowing that we were going to come here illegally. It was a tough journey. We had to stay with smugglers during the crossing, which one of them lost my sister on the way. I can still remember the moment I lost my sister. It was pitch dark. It was frightening for a 7-year-old girl. It was horrific listening to the smuggler tell me to shut up or something else will happen to me. But I just kept calling my sister's name so she could follow my voice and reach where we were. Otherwise, I think they would have left her. Moments later, after that situation, my sister actually ran with the smuggler to get to the U.S. A police officer stopped them, told them to stop or that he was going to start shooting. When I heard those words, my heart sank. I thought my sister was going to be lost. And I just prayed for the best. My sister did stop. The smuggler just kept on running. Eventually, the police officers found us and detained us. I remember being in a cold van, uncertain of what our future was going to look like, but we just hoped for the best. Like I said, we were 7 years old. We didn't know exactly what we were doing. We only knew that we wanted to see our parents that were on this side. When we got to the offices of ICE, I remember being so cold. It was almost like a freezer to me, since my sister and I had crossed the Rio Grande. The waters were somewhat warm, but going through those offices, it felt like our clothing was completely put in a freezer and then put on. At that time, I didn't exactly know what was happening. I thought that I did something wrong, obviously, because police officers were around me, but I didn't exactly understood the reasons of why they were being detained. I remember them locking us in a cell, which was filthy. I remember a lot of dirty clothing and a lot of dirt around it. As I was shaking and trying to get close to my sister so I could have a little bit of her warmth, she told me, "Don't be scared, we'll get through this." She picked up dirty clothing, shook it off, and put it on top of me. I remember seeing other people in other cells that were not kids, that were most likely criminals, and they started cursing out. I remember their conversation a little bit, parts here and there, of how many people they had started with and how many people they had left. We were there about 5 to 6 hours, but for me it was like forever. It was hard to get everything together. My sister was kept on my side most of the time, except when the police officer had to question us individually. So they took them out first, and they asked her questions, and then they fingerprinted us, and then they asked us to sign some papers that I didn't know about. I didn't even understood English at all, so we just signed. And from there, I remember how this guy started talking to one of the smugglers and saying, "Don't worry, we'll try again." And I just closed my eyes and said, "Please, God, no. I don't want to go through this again." I don't want to get another shot, and this time being my sister being hit. So I just remember looking at my sister and saying, "Please, no. I don't want to go through this again." Now, 18 years later, I'm here in front of you guys because a lot of things are happening at the border. I was there only for 5 to 6 hours, but it felt forever. And after that, there's so many repercussions of it. Until this day, even though I'm somewhat safe, I still get nervous around police officers, although I know they're here to protect us, and I know most of them are very nice people that are willing to give their lives for us. But having that moment in my life, being put in jail at a young age, it hurt me. And the only thing that we're looking for is a chance. We're not looking to take anything away from anybody. We just want a chance to live a safe life, live a happy life, and all of our children to be safe. I know that you guys are here because you're against this, and I really, really appreciate that. I wish that hopefully someday those children, when they grow up, they will see all of the people that worked so hard, that protested so hard, that went out there to the legislators to talk to, and they know that not all people are the same, and that there are some kind people and good people that are willing to fight for the rights of others. Thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Maritza. We just have a few more things to happen now. We are turning things over to the voice of our children. Next up, Avery Evans, a junior from Council Rock South High School, and Dylan Chang, a junior from Pennsbury High School, are going to read an excerpt of a poem by Warsan Shire, and then we have a song, and while we're singing, the other children are going to come up front, and we're going to begin lighting candles at the front here. We see some candles back there. They're beautiful. We're going to light all of them up front here from the children in just a few minutes, so hold on to your candles if you haven't lit them yet. Avery and Dylan.
This is from the poem Home by Warsan Shire. You have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. No one burns their palms under trains beneath carriages. No one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck, feeding on newspaper, unless the miles traveled means something more than the journey.
No one crawls under fences. No one wants to be beaten, pitied. No one leaves home until home is a sweaty voice in your ear saying, "Leave, run away from me now." I don't know what I've become, but I know that anywhere is safer than here.
Thank you both so much. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is join our voices together in singing No nos moverán, we shall not be moved. This is an African-American spiritual that was translated into Spanish and sung during the U.S. labor movement in the 1930s, before becoming an important part of the Chicano movement of the 1960s and part of the social justice and revolutionary movements across Spain and Latin America. So please join us in singing No nos moverán. No. we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree standing by the river. We shall not be moved. No band, no wall. No band, no wall. No nos moverán. No band, no wall. No nos moverán como un árbol verde junto al río. No nos moverán. No nos moverán. No nos moverán como un árbol verde junto al río. No nos moverán. All right. We would now like to welcome the children who are going to read the names of the children that have died in U.S. custody at the border. Please welcome Briseida, Desiree, Maya, Layla, Parker, and Sage.
Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, 16 years old, from Guatemala. Cristabel Cordova Valle, 10 years old, from El Salvador. Juan de Leon Gutierrez, 16 years old, from Guatemala.
Felipa Gomez Alonso, 8 years old, from Guatemala.
Wilmer Josue Ramirez Vasquez, 2.5 years old, from Guatemala.
Jacqueline Kayal McKean, 7 years old, from Guatemala.
This candle is lit for Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez and his daughter Valeria, 23 months old, from El Salvador, who died crossing the Rio Grande River. And it's for 20-month-old Maria Juarez, who died shortly after being held with her mother at the Family Detention Center in Texas. And for all those who have died crossing rivers, deserts, mountains, and streets to find refuge in the U.S.
As we close, please join us in singing This Little Light of Mine. And if anyone needs a candle, we have lots up here. Okay, here we go. This love of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Don't let hatred blow it out. Don't let hatred out. I'm gonna let it shine. Don't let hatred blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Don't let hatred blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Go tell all the racists. Go tell all the racists. I'm gonna let it shine. Go tell all the racists. I'm gonna let it shine. so very much, and thank you to all of our speakers and all of the work that went into this, and all of you for being out here with us tonight. For the children, for our neighbors and friends and family and community, we love you, we stand with you, we will not turn away.